Hello everyone. I wanted to post this video because I've seen a lot in the news about the BTK killer. Supposedly they found some things located on his old property recently. I will just read you briefly some of these facts about the case, and this can be found at cbs58.com. It says, in this week's search of the Kansas property owned by Rader, the Oklahoma investigators found personal effects or trophies that definitely belonged to a woman. The items were found in a hole that was discovered Tuesday when a Park City crew lifted concrete for the Oklahoma investigators. Authorities have previously said Rader took and kept victims' personal effects, including jewelry and clothing. Investigators this week found chains apparently used for bondage, along with C-clips that can shorten chains or be used to secure a person's leg or feet. They also found items they don't currently want to describe publicly. The whole sides were reinforced with roofing shingles and concrete pavers made for a flat floor. This week's discoveries came after the Oklahoma investigators found a pantyhose ligature on the property in April. The ligature was tied in a knot consistent with binding someone's hands or feet together. It was found under concrete that Park City had poured on the property to make a sidewalk in the area of where a storage shed once stood. This ongoing investigation has uncovered potential connections to other missing persons cases and unsolved murders in the Kansas and Missouri areas, which are possibly linked to Dennis Rader. And then it says the items found will undergo thorough examination to determine their potential relevance to the ongoing investigation. So that just kind of sums things up a little bit with what they found. So basically there was one of his old properties, there was some poured concrete. They lifted the concrete. They found a hidey hole under the concrete with the they said pieces of carpet and the chains that I mentioned earlier, and then a woman's personal effects. I would say, being how long they had to have been there, it's more than likely jewelry. Maybe clothing could survive. It depended, I guess, on how things were stored in this hole or wrapped up or kept. I don't know. But I would say more than likely it was jewelry. And I'm sure there's other things they found that they're keeping close to the vest. They're not letting the public know, what all they've uncovered. And then you have the ligature pantyhose thing that they found in April on the property. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that these were definitely belonging to Rader. And I'm sure they'll prove that under their tests and things that they're doing. But I've also read about his journal. And so there's a missing person that has been missing since 1976. She was 16 years old. Her name is Cynthia Kinney. And she went missing at a laundromat. And in his journal, he has an entry called Bad Wash Day. And this entry was made around that time she went missing. So now they're thinking he is responsible for her disappearance. And this is what kicked up the investigation again. And they say they've gotten leads that they can't disclose what those leads were exactly. But those leads ultimately led them to also have reason to dig up, parts of this property. He also had a sketchbook, and in that sketchbook there are multiple women and young girls in there being bound and tortured, and it appears that they're in a barn. And when that Cynthia was missing and everyone was looking for her, they got an anonymous call that said, you can find her in a barn. And so now they're like looking back at that call and thinking, okay, was that his way of trying to lead us to her or tell on himself or whatever, like he liked to do, you know? And with these drawings of all these women in barns being tortured, I would say that there's a pretty good chance that was him, and he was telling the truth that she was in a barn. You got to think, this was a family man. He didn't have these women bound up in his house somewhere. And in another article I read that he had a fascination with barns. And so it makes sense to me that this is where he got away with doing his killings and stuff. So I think there's a lot more that is to be found about him. I think, you know, he confessed in 2005 to, I think, 10 murders, if I'm correct. But I bet there's a heck of a lot more than that out there. And with what they've found now, plus his drawings and different things, I feel like it's just a matter of time before they find out a lot more about him and unfortunately victims. I think there's a lot more victims out there. So I would like to know what you think. Do you believe there's a lot more victims out there? Do you think that if they find more victims, that they should actually seek the death penalty on him? Or do you think, well, he's an old man now, he's 78, he's in a wheelchair, just let him admit to the killings and put another life sentence on him? You know, because really he is kind of in the end phase of his life. I guess he's pretty weak and, you know, who knows how much longer he's got. So, or do you want to see him actually, you know, get killed? Lethal injection or something. What do you think should happen to him? And how many more victims do you think is out there? I think there's several, because this man, you know, wasn't going to admit to any of them that he didn't have to. So, I think we need to keep an eye on this developing story, see what else they find out, and if they find links to other victims. They're trying to identify these women in his pictures. I'm going to try to, you know, put those pictures up here. These would be victims from the early 70s to the early 90s. So, and it would be Oklahoma area, I believe Missouri, and I'm not sure where else they believe the victims came from. But you never know. Maybe somebody will recognize these women. But that's really it for now. I just wanted to make sure to cover this story as it's unfolding. And if anything else comes to light about this, I'll try to update you guys. So thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe so you can get notified for future content. And thanks for listening.